Sis, I'm going to say something that might sting a little. It's not that love is dead, it's that your boundaries are pushing the right people away and attracting the wrong ones. Most women don't need more dating apps, they need better boundaries. And today I'm going to show you why your boundaries aren't blocking love, but your lack of boundaries absolutely is. Stay tuned, we're going to dig in.
Welcome to the Secret Formula of Femininity for women who want to live a more feminine, fun, and fabulous life. I'm Dr. Nicole Monteiro, your host on this weekly journey to unlocking your inner radiance, nurturing fulfilling relationships, and becoming the best version of yourself.
Well, welcome back to the Secret Formula of Femininity. I'm Dr. Nicole, your host and guide on this journey to tapping into your feminine essence. And today we're tackling one of the biggest reasons that I have found that women are struggling with love. You think you're protecting yourself, but you're actually pushing love away. You think you have boundaries, but it's really walls that are pushing the right people away. Let's talk about it. And I'm going to share a little story with you. This is a good friend of mine, and we talk about this extensively. And she was like, Nicole, you have to share this. We laugh about this now because this was before she met her husband, before she met the man who she would end up getting engaged to and eventually married to. And she was telling me how she was on the apps and she was wanting to be courted, and she went out on a date with a man who looked perfect on paper. He was educated, stable, kind, emotionally intelligent. You know, he had that grown man energy. And sis, let me tell you, she ruined that date within the first 15 minutes. Not because she was rude, not because she was arrogant. She's a very kind and refined woman. And it wasn't because she wasn't interested, but it was because she had been hurt in the past. And she built her boundaries out of fear, not out of a healthy feminine energy. So let me tell you what she did. And she retold this story to me. It was hilarious. She said they sat down. He asked a simple, kind question. So, what kind of relationship are you looking for? And instead of answering with confidence or curiosity, you know how we talk about drawing a person in with curiosity, she snapped into defensive mode and she was like, I'm not settling. I'm not tolerating nonsense. I'm not putting up with any drama. I'm not wasting my time. And she was like, I meant every word of it. But the way she delivered it, it was like a sword. And she said she literally saw him blink. He took a breath and said, wow, sounds like you've been through things. And I say this all the time when I watch some of these internet shows, dating shows, and the women and the men too, but we're talking to the ladies right now. They will talk about all the things they don't want. When they say, what are you looking for in a man? I don't want a man who does this. I don't want that. And it's like a laundry list of things that clearly this woman has been through, and she has every single right to not want to go through those things again. But the problem is when you're coming into a new situation with someone who doesn't know you and you're coming in so strong, you're literally saying, these are all my traumas. And so you kind of have to play it a little differently where you make it clear what your boundaries are and what you want without pushing someone away by literally listing every single trauma you've been through before. And so my friend was telling me when he said, wow, it sounds like you've been through things. She said she normally would have taken offense, but something in her shifted. Maybe it was the calmness. Like I said, she said he had grown man energy. She literally stopped and tried to reflect and listen to how she was coming across. She realized her boundaries weren't inviting. They weren't confident. They weren't clear. They were defensive, sharp, reactive. They were trauma disguised as standards. And here's the real truth. She wasn't setting boundaries. She was literally building walls. And who could blame her, right? She was trying to protect herself. But walls don't necessarily protect love. They repel love. They block connection, and they feel like hostility to a healthy, emotionally mature man. That date changed everything for her. Now, it didn't work out with them, but it caused her to self reflect and look within about how she could build better boundaries and tear down some of those defensive walls that really weren't protecting her anyway. Because here's the thing, when she listed all those traumas she wasn't going to stand for, those statements gave a clue to the man who didn't have good intentions that this woman is still hurt. I can find her vulnerabilities and I can try to exploit them. These are a narcissist or an emotionally immature person's best weapon to try to turn against you. And as we sat and we would talk over the years about this, she was like, okay, boundaries, I was thinking of them as these barbed wire things that are going to keep people out. But they're meant to be more like velvet ropes. Velvet ropes tell people you can come in, but this is where the line is. Walls say, stay away. Barbed wire says, I don't want you here near me. Don't even look at me. So I want to ask you, are your boundaries barbed wire, walls, or velvet rope? Let's get into some uncomfortable truths because that's how this idea of having walls has even gotten started. Every week, I get people DMing me about what is the right balance with relationships. The first truth is that the problem isn't that relationships don't work, it's that people don't know how to be in relationships anymore. We're overstimulated, underconnected, hyper independent, emotionally exhausted, and we are trying to attract love while operating as if we don't need it. Literally, we are sending mixed messages. Truth number two, independence isn't the goal. Interdependence should be the goal. If you are so self sufficient that no one can support you, you've built a life that cannot hold love. You might have your reasons, but just know it's not going to work. Truth number three, I don't need anyone. This is a trauma response. It's not empowerment. Healthy femininity doesn't reject connection, it magnetizes it and it is able to discern healthy from unhealthy connection. Truth number four, many women think boundaries scare good men away, but actually, the lack of boundaries is what attracts low quality men. Reactive boundaries push high quality men away because they're like, okay, I can see the trauma bubbling over here. Healthy masculine men love clear, confident, feminine women who are able to express their boundaries. Truth number five. The reason many people don't want to date is because relationships require emotional skills that most adults never learned. We're running from the bad examples that we saw growing up. So, a lot of us never learned conflict resolution, emotional regulation, communication, accountability, or how to repair difficulties in relationships. We've only learned that if you stay, it means you're weak and you're going to get walked all over. So the best thing to do is run and flee. And that's just not viable for a lasting, healthy relationship. In essence, we learned everything except how to love each other in a healthy way. Truth number six, if you have no boundaries, you get mistreated. If you have harsh boundaries, you get avoided. If you have feminine boundaries, you get chosen and you draw what's healthy to you. And that's why today is about becoming the woman who gets chosen. And please do not get it twisted. There are going to be people that tell you who needs to be chosen. We all want to be chosen. And it's about being chosen in a healthy way and exuding that healthy energy. So I've told you the story. We went over the truth bombs. Now let's get practical. This is where your boundaries become magnets instead of repellents. I call it the Boundaries to Bliss Blueprint, the 5 types of boundaries every woman needs to attract healthy love, deepen connection, and keep emotional safety alive. One is physical and time boundaries. Your first velvet rope. Think of this as your affection and availability filter. What it looks like in practice is you decide where, when, and how often you meet. You protect personal space, rest time, and your calendar. You don't cancel your own plans to chase a text or last minute meeting if it drains you. Beware of those dopamine spikes that come from anticipating a response, canceling everything, and then chasing. Why do these types of boundaries build attraction? People respect someone who respects her own time. It signals that your life is full and meaningful, not empty, waiting on anyone to fill it. It also speaks to your self worth. You're worth your own time, and anyone who wants you must honor that. What it repels those flaky and controlling partners who want you on demand, those who only want to see you after hours. They have other things that they're juggling or being dishonest. They really repel people who don't value your life outside of them. And there's so many ways you can express these boundaries. Something like, hey, I love that idea, but I have something scheduled then. Can we find another time? When you do this, you're not being rude, you're being rare. And that is exactly what you are. The second type is emotional boundaries. Soft but iron strong. This is where many women struggle. You want to be open but not overwhelmed. You want love but not to bleed out. This looks like you deciding what feelings, words, or stories you take on in your space. You say no to emotional dumping without care or reciprocity. You keep your emotional energy for people who show up with respect and who actually show they care. This means that you also have to be mindful of not trauma dumping. A lot of us, because we feel so isolated, we get into these trauma bonds. We quickly connect, we tell everything, we listen to everything, and then we feel like it's a connection. But soon we realize that the other person or even ourselves don't have the skills to manage listening to all of that trauma. The best thing to do is to take it slowly, be light, find other ways to bond besides trauma energy. This builds attraction because emotional availability attracts genuinely available partners. But when you're deep into just talking about trauma or just being there for someone else's energy, that doesn't signal emotional availability. And clear emotional boundaries are what create safety. This is the kind of safety that allows intimacy to deepen, not to shut down because things go too fast and then suddenly get scary. It also prevents toxic cycles of guilt, codependency, and emotional exhaustion. You feel like you have to step in and fix or help that person, then you feel depleted by it and then guilty if you don't step up and do that thing over and over. It really is a toxic cycle that many of us walk into without even realizing it. What do emotional boundaries repel? They repel those emotional leeches or those who only show up when it's convenient for them. And that's not just in romantic relationships, that's friendships. You don't want to be that person that people only call because you seem like the responsible, healthy one, so they only call you when they need help. But when it's time to have fun or help somebody or show up, it seems like you're not first on the list. In fact, you're last. It also repels overly needy or manipulative behaviors that drain you. So you could say things like, I care about you, but I can't engage in blaming or shaming conversations. Let's talk when we can be respectful. This is for those times when a person tries to make you feel guilty for not wanting to listen, not wanting to take in their energy, or not wanting to be in that negative space for them. Here's the truth, not every emotional expression deserves your stage. Protect the audience and protect your peace. The third type of boundary is communication boundaries. This is the language of attraction. Think of this as the soundtrack of your relationship. If your communication is harsh or vague, you'll create noise, not music. So, what do communication boundaries look like? You request clarity in tone, timing, and content. You avoid silent treatments or passive aggression. And you hold conversations with intention, not just to vent. So you don't engage in games where a person gets to cut you off and then suddenly feed you breadcrumbs to reel you back in, or where they're passive aggressive when they notice that you don't like the treatment or try to set a boundary, and then they suddenly switch up their behavior. But then once it seems like your defenses are down, they go back to being aggressive or pushing you away or shutting you out. Here's the thing, communication boundaries build attraction because people feel heard, safe, and drawn in when communication is direct yet kind, not overly harsh, but not vague. It keeps misunderstandings from turning into resentment. You talk like an adult, not like a little scared child. And it repels these dramas, speculation, accusations, endless fights with no solutions. You know, those kind of men that like to sit on the phone and just get into debates or mindless arguments just to get a rise out of you. Aren't you sick of that? Healthy communication also repels people who avoid accountability or refuse to speak clearly. You know, those who sound good with the words, but when you think about it, they haven't really said much of substance or haven't committed to anything. So, an example of a healthy communication boundary is I need us to speak openly and respectfully. If we can't, let's pause and return when we can. You're not saying, hey, you had one chance and it's over, but you are letting it be known what your standard of healthy communication is. And there is research to this. Attraction and connection are influenced by how we see ourselves and others in relationships. A 2023 study from Boston University noted how people often make quick assumptions about others based on perceived similarity, which can limit real connection. It suggests a need to slow down and avoid rigid one size fits all conclusions about someone else's inner world. So, again, remember when we go too quickly, we make these assumptions, we have our confirmation bias, and we don't have time to step back and pause and really have a deeper look. Also, clear communication gives room for complex, real connection, not superficial, surface level similarity. The fourth type of boundary is value and moral boundaries. Your core compass. These are the non negotiables that define who you are, what you believe, and the kind of love you accept. This looks like you not compromising values for comfort or in the moment connection. You should align with people who respect your spirituality, your ethics, or your life goals. And you can do this by voicing your standards with calm confidence, not attitude or aggression. And this builds attraction because it invites people who truly resonate with you, not those who only tolerate you and make you feel like they're doing you a favor. It prevents you from wasting time trying to change someone else's deep beliefs because you think you have chemistry, and if only you could change that one thing about them, everything would be okay. It also showcases self respect. High quality partners value self respect more than you even think. They don't say it, but they value it. It also repels people who want you to bend or hide your truth, and partners who expect you to lower your standards just to ease their guilt or discomfort. There's different ways to express this. And again, it doesn't have to be harsh and aggressive, but you could say something like, I honor my values and I need someone who can do the same. If that doesn't fit, we should walk away with respect. You see, ladies, how when you're confident and calm, nobody can really argue with it. They either get with the program or they realize that, hey, you're not a good fit for each other. Here's the truth: without values, you'll attract anything, but nothing that actually lasts. The fifth type of boundary is so important: sexual and intimacy boundaries. This is about pace, consent, and emotional alignment. It's not about being strict or permissive, those extremes on either end of the spectrum. What does this look like? It looks like you defining what intimacy means for you, and you protect yourself from losing yourself in a physical connection that's not emotionally safe for you. It builds attraction because it honors your body, mind, and spirit. And that is truly magnetic. It shows, again, that you have confidence and self respect. It draws a partner who's patient, respectful, and truly interested in more than just a moment. It also gives your intimate encounters meaning, not emptiness or looking to fill a void. It repels those quick, shallow encounters with people who don't really want real depth. It also repels people who want to pressure, manipulate, or coerce you into doing something you don't want to do. Now, this is an area where, ladies, we have to take responsibility, not getting caught up in the 666, as we call it, or the 676, 6 feet, 7 figures, six pack, and thinking that that means that there's a connection and that there's something deeper. A lot of times men can be in the moment and it doesn't mean anything. They're happy in that moment and they're willing to move on. And a lot of times, ladies, we take a connection in the moment to mean that there was something deeper, even though there was no discussion of what you're both looking for. So, how can you express these intimacy boundaries? You can say something like, I want to connect deeply. I'm not ready for more right now. Let's move at a pace that honors both of us. Here's a truth that a lot of us have yet to learn: shortcutting intimacy is shortcutting love. Quick hops in the sack do not mean that there's a desire for a deeper connection or deeper long term relationship. So, how can you integrate the blueprint? How can you start using it? Pick one boundary type and sharpen it this week. Work on that one boundary. Practice one script from that type in real conversation. So, pick a script a one-liner that you can practice. Observe how people respond and how your energy shifts, and repeat that with another boundary type the next week. Remember, boundaries are not one and done. They take practice. They're a repeat, refine, and elevate practice over and over. And it gets easier and it becomes more a part of who you are and how you express yourself. So let's talk about feminine versus masculine boundaries and what to avoid. A masculine boundary style is more harsh, aggressive, and reactive. It may push people away even if your values are right or aligned. Feminine boundaries are calm, confident, and clear. It invites healthy people to step in, it doesn't chase them away. It comes from a place of inner safety and comfort within yourself. The truth is, walls are not boundaries. Velvet ropes are the real boundaries. And so many of us have felt that we needed something as extreme as walls because we were never taught the value of velvet ropes. We were never taught how to put them up, how to take care of them, how to display them, how to let them protect us. And it's okay if you didn't learn because knowledge and self awareness are truly power. So let's do a quick anchor or check-in before the Q&A. If you're going to remember just one thing from this episode, that feminine boundaries create attraction, reactive or absent boundaries create avoidance. Which one are you trying to gravitate towards? All right, so this is my favorite part is the Q&A, and these are real questions that women actually ask. Question 1 is, Dr. Nicole, why are so many people saying they don't want relationships today? The short answer is because relationships require emotional skills that most people never learned, and many are scared of doing the work. People fear conflict, vulnerability, accountability, and repair. That last part is key. They've seen relationships fail. They're tired of being ignored, disrespected, or emotionally drained. But what's required is a shift. When you understand that relationships are not a trap, but a practice field for emotional mastery, your skepticism becomes curiosity. When boundaries protect your energy, relationships look inviting again, not dangerous. You actually will develop the skills to make relationships safe again. You don't hate relationships, you hate having to be unsafe in them. And that's understandable and that can change. Question 2 is interdependence even possible, or should I just stay independent? Listen, interdependence is not just possible, it is actually the healthiest form of connection we have. Psychologists have discussed the healthiest options in close relationships as interdependence, not extreme independence, and not unhealthy dependence, but a balanced mutual relationship between two individuals. What this means is you're strong enough to hold yourself and open enough to receive support. You actually can ask for help without losing yourself. You actually can give without losing your boundaries. The truth is, independence without intimacy is isolation. Interdependence without boundaries is chaos. Choose interdependence with clarity and boundaries and standards for yourself. Question 3 is, I still feel guilty when I set boundaries. How do I stop? The thing is, your guilt comes from a false script that your worth depends on endless giving or approval. So it's really about a mindset shift. You have to understand that boundaries are acts of self respect. They're not selfish, they're actually your survival. They make you more available to love, not less available. So you have to start with the smallest boundary, like a simple time boundary. Notice if you feel that guilt, repeat it anyway, push through the guilt. The guilt will actually lose its power when you act in alignment with your truth, not with someone else's expectations or your own faulty script about your worth. Guilt is not a compass, it is a leash that's holding you back. So you have to slowly begin to loosen it and eventually take it off and leave it where it is. Question 4 is, what if he doesn't agree with my boundaries? Listen to me and listen to me clearly. If someone doesn't respect your boundaries, that's not a cue to change your boundary. That's information about that relationship's viability and that person's respect for you. Use this as a filter. If the person refuses to align, then kindly walk away. Use that information to help protect yourself. If, on the other hand, the person tries to understand and adjust, then you might have some potential for growth together. Use the information that that person gives you accordingly. You don't lower mountains to fit into valleys. Keep that in mind. Okay, and question 5 is, how do I tell the difference between a healthy boundary and a fear driven wall? Love this. Healthy boundaries feel like calm confidence. Walls feel like tense defensiveness. You feel it in your body. You can check for your tone. It should be soft, clear, steady versus sharp, reactive, and harsh. Check your intention or your purpose. It should be to protect your energy, not push everyone away. And the outcomes are different. Healthy boundaries invite healthy people to come closer to you versus chasing everyone away. You can do little practices or tests like say your boundary out loud. If it sounds intimidating or hostile, try to soften it without losing the clarity of the message. If, on the other hand, it feels uncertain or apologetic, try to firm it up with a difference in your tone and the words that you're using. Think of it like this: fear builds thick walls, while love builds soft ropes. Those were some great questions. Now, before we end, I want to break down some myths that are so prevalent. Myth number 1 is that love is rare because people are lazy or selfish. The truth is, love is rare because emotional skills are rare. You can become rare in the right way by building and living boundaries that attract depth and stability. Myth number 2 is that boundaries kill chemistry. The truth is, boundaries create chemistry, the kind that lasts, not the kind that fades after the drama and all of the excitement and adrenaline has faded. Myth number 3 is that soft women are taken advantage of. The truth is that soft women with clear boundaries are treasured, they are desired, and they are sought after by mature, healthy men. Sis, if this episode landed deep in your heart, somewhere that you know you needed to hear it, you are not done here. I invite you to join the Inner Circle membership, the Boundaries to Bliss Society. This is a community for women ready to live those healthy boundaries, bask in their feminine energy, and build the skills that they need for a healthy, mature, sustainable relationship. You practice boundaries with support. You learn feminine communication weekly. You share wins, struggles, and questions with women on the same path as you. Community is so key on this journey. You get coaching, resources, and real connection, not just content that you're expected to understand and go through on your own. What happens if you don't join? Nothing dramatic, but you may keep feeling stuck between wanting love and fearing love. You may keep pushing people away or choosing the wrong people. You may keep hoping for a different result without practicing a different habit. What happens if you do join? You step into a space that reinforces your velvet rope, your boundaries, not your walls. You learn to be soft and strong, not soft and passive. You get chosen by healthy men, healthy relationships, and healthy opportunities because you become the woman who attracts them, not the woman who fears that they don't exist. If you're ready to make that shift, click the link in the show notes and join the Boundaries to Bliss Society. Let's learn to build your attraction, connection, and love one healthy boundary at a time. Listen, softness is not a liability. Boundaries aren't a burden, and love is certainly not dead. Here's what I know to be true: you are alive, radiant, wise, and ready. Your boundaries are your magnet for healthy relationships. Your heart is your home, and your love, when protected, practiced, and honored by that velvet rope, that is unstoppable. These are the boundaries that build attraction. This is your season for it, sis. It's your choice, it's your love, it's your future healthy relationship. Thank you so much for joining today. I will see you in the next episode. I'm Dr. Nicole.